Do you speak crowdlending? Welcome to our podcast covering the crowdlending industry. Our mission is to provide you with all the insights from this market and help you make informed decisions. I'm Gassan, co-founder and CEO of Acredius. We are a crowdlending platform based in Zurich, Switzerland. I'm delighted to host this podcast and hopefully bring value to all our listeners.
Hi everyone, welcome to the episode number 20 of the Do You Speak Crowdlending. We've been I think the last episode was some months ago. So today we are honored to have Nuno with us, Nuno Brito. Nuno is the founder and CEO of Go Parity. He's going to tell us more about Go Parity and a bit more on the landscape of crowdlending in Portugal and a lot more. So, Nuno, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Gassan. It's great to be here.
Excellent. So, tell us more about Go Parity, yourself. If you can give us a little bit of a storyline here.
Yeah, well, I'm Nuno, of course. I'm one of the co-founders and CEO of Go Parity. Go Parity is actually I wouldn't say fourth company, but my fourth business initiative. So I'm an environmental engineer by training. Before becoming an entrepreneur, I used to work in the European Parliament as an advisor for energy and environment matters. Then I took a big gap year trip around South America, doing some volunteering and stuff. Came back to Europe, did a master's in management in Barcelona. I worked in a research company for a while and moved back to Portugal to work for a large utility on renewable energies. And that's actually when the first idea for starting something like Go Parity came. So we're talking about 2009.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. So what does Go Parity do? I mean, I know you guys do impact investing, crowdlending. Tell us a bit more about the inspiration behind this, why going into that direction.
Yeah, well, we call ourselves like a daily finance and impact investing app. And our goal is to bring more of the green side of investing to people's daily lives. So the inspiration actually came from this experience I was telling you about when I moved back to Portugal, and when I lived in Belgium and when I lived in Spain. I used to have my bank account on a green bank. And then moving back to Portugal in 2009, there were no green banks there. It was actually kind of the opposite. It was like peak financial crisis, a lot of corruption stuff coming to the surface on the banking system. And since there wasn't a green bank, I just talked to some friends. I talked to my stepmother. I convinced her to rent the roof of her small hotel in the southern part of Portugal for me to install a solar PV station. So the idea would be, we will invest in solar power in your hotel. We'll pay a rent for the roof. Mm-hmm. So she would get some money out of having the panels there, and we would have a decent return on our investment, knowing where our money was being used and how it was actually generating interest. We didn't have money enough. I talked to a couple of friends. We didn't have money enough, so we started talking to family and friends around us and people that we thought could be interested. And the proposition was, if you lend us some money, we will pay you back at, I think, 4 or 5% interest at that time. And it was quite easy to get that money. Okay. So that's when we first thought there might be a business model around this. We were talking 2009. Then back then we did some research and we found out about renewable energy cooperatives, but also of some crowdlending that was already starting, especially on the UK. And one of them, which is Abundance Generation, more on the renewable energy crowdlending.
I see. Very interesting. Very interesting. And here you are today with Go Parity. You told me a little bit before we start recording that you have big milestones, big achievements, and you have a goal to reach in the short term.
Yeah. So this all happened in 2009, and then we only started GoParity actually in 2017. We only launched our first investment in 2018 because there was no framework in Portugal to work with crowdlending. Ended up starting other companies, and then finally we launched GoParity as a crowdlending for solar power kind of platform. So the big proposition with GoParity was and still is, but now it's broader. But the goal is that you, as a citizen, with as little as €5, can lend money to companies that are looking for funding for their sustainability project. In 2017 or 18, it was solar power. In 2019, we launched our app, and we shifted to an SDG sort of approach. So potentially any project that contributes to the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations could be funded with GoParity. A long time we've been, of course, growing, but when we've really seen the bigger, faster growth is after the pandemics in 2020.
Interesting. So the pandemic had a good effect.
Yeah, to give you just we also hired in that time. We did some technological leaps, so I'm not sure if we cannot totally correlate it to the pandemics only. But before the pandemics, our largest investment per month, so the total raised in 1 month for projects in our platform, I think was around 180K. And in September, after the pandemic, so the summer of 2020, we raised 300,000. And then from the 300,000 from September, we had consecutive best months until March or April the year after. And nowadays we're raising, I think, regularly more than €600,000 per month for sustainable projects. And we have already done 1 month of more than 800,000, 2 months of more than 700,000. So we have actually grown in investment capacity, but also a lot in users. We now have more than 20,000 registered users. And by the end of 2020, we had 3,000.
Wow! Congratulations! Really great milestones.
Thanks.
And so the users only where is the scope? Where are they based?
Yeah. So user-wise, of course, there's around 85% in Portugal. We have more and more presence of Spanish and Italian users.
Okay.
And then there's Brazilian, and then Dutch and German. We have investors from 65 different countries in our project.
Wow. Still in the EU, or you said no, Brazil, right?
No, if it's 65, it's all over.
Yeah. Because do you need like a particular license for non-EU investors or no?
No, not for the investors. So for projects, we can fund companies in all the European Economic Area. That would be the European Union plus some neighboring countries. But for investors, you can have investors from, I think, 174 or 176 countries in the world. So it's almost all over the world. We have funded projects outside of Europe, but there needs to be a European counterpart. So let's say you have a holding company. I can give you an example. Our projects in Brazil and in Colombia, they're actually owned by a company in Sweden.
I see.
And they invest in solar power in Brazil and in Colombia. We have the same thing with solar power in Uganda with a company has a Dutch shareholder that's the company that's being funded. Same thing, Ecuador and Peru with the UK, and Germany with Kenya.
Interesting. So tell me more about these projects. What are the factors you guys take in consideration to know if they're eligible for funding on Go Parity?
Yeah, so we call it sort of called it triple due diligence. So we do, first of all, a due diligence on the company. So to know what's the financial condition of the company and decide whether we fund them or not, and what's their risk rating. Then we do a project analysis where we see the viability of the project itself, so what the money is being used for. Because sometimes the project is the company, right? If you're starting, let's say, an eco resort, then the project is the company. But if you're a shoe factory and you want funding to buy solar panels, then the project is something separate than the company. The company will still do whatever shoes they do, but they're going to be using us to fund their solar panels. And then there's the the impact analysis. Okay. And that's where we verify what sort of positive impact do they have. Does it outweigh the potential negative impacts that the project has? What sustainable development goal they measure, and then we quantify it. So we have several KPIs, but 6 standard KPIs, and every project should contribute to at least 2 or 3. They are the CO2 emissions that are saved, the kilowatt hours of renewable energy or energy saving that is generated, jobs created, people impacted, communities empowered, women in leadership position, hectares of biodiversity protected, so many different things.
Does that play a role on the credit risk assessment of the case, or not really? That's more on the...
No, the credit, unfortunately, is still a very standard thing, sort of same kind of analysis that the regular investor would do.
I see. Interesting. So, I mean, when you speak to these, let's speak again about the investors, what are the arguments? What do you guys tell them that make them, invest in crowdlending, and what makes crowdlending or marketplace lending attractive to them?
Well, I think the basic common thing here is the proposition is the money for good thing, right?
Okay.
You can use your money to do good stuff, and then there are different fields on which we communicate. So one of them, for example, is transparency. So we try to communicate clearly on an unbiased manner, so that you can know exactly where your money is. And we offer that, because you get to choose the company that you want to invest in, the exact project you want to invest in. But then there's another one that is tangibility. So it's not just about knowing where it is, it's about knowing how much work your money is doing. And we use these KPIs and metrics that we try to make as easy to understand and to relate to as possible, so that people know, I've put 1,000 euros on this project, it'll make me this much in interest, but it's also having all these other benefits.
I see.
Then there's of course the more of the financial side of it, because we can actually give you a decent profit on your money. Our average interest rate now in all projects is 5.25% per year on an average 3.6 years maturity. So the average portfolio, let's say, if anyone invested in every project, would be a really good portfolio, I think.
Interesting.
Other aspect that is interesting, we have a very low non-performing loans perspective.
Okay.
Percentage.
Percentage, yeah.
It's just below 1%.
Great.
which is much smaller than the average say, bank.
What is the average loan duration you have?
That's 3.6 years.
Okay. So still like it's not too long, it's not too short.
Yeah, I mean, of course, it's one of the contradictions of working in this space is we all know that sustainability needs long-term thinking, but no one likes to think long-term when it comes to the return on their investment, right?
Exactly.
So we try to mix the two, and sometimes we have a short term. We also know that people, if you're going to invest in a short-term campaign, but there's another good one that speaks to you in some way, that is open at the same time, then you'll probably not put all the eggs on the same basket, and you place a few eggs on the other more long-term sort of campaign, and then we have beautiful stories of impact to tell.
Interesting. So, I mean, how do you see now that you're really in the middle of it? How do you see the future of impact investing? Is it like, as you said, like everyone wants sustainability, but they want it to be short term, and then you tell them, no, but this is long term. How do you see it from your perspective? So, in 10 years from now, in 20 and 30 and 50 years from now, where will we be?
Well, I'm very optimistic to think that the same words, sustainable investing and impact investing, won't be needed and won't be needed anymore by then. I think it will actually become mainstream, and money will actually only be used to work for good. Because what is wrong is that we need to have this sort of terms. So you like ethical banking. So what does that mean? That all the other banks are not ethical? We're talking about basic values, and but it's. I like to think that in the future, none of this will be needed, and the financial system, like the energy system, they were built to serve us, the end user, and somewhere along the way, we lost track of that, and other values took over, and it was all servitized, and we're not the ultimate beneficiaries anymore. That's what
I think for then crowdlending for this type of investing is kind of like really one of the best ways to do it, right? Because it's the crowd, it's everyone. You can really have a community around it, right? So that's what
that's part of the conversation with the companies that get funded with us too. And a lot of them already perceive that value, that it's not only about having or not a more competitive cost of capital than what a bank would give you. It's also about standing for the democratizing the economy. It's about raising awareness about what your company is doing, and inviting people to join.
Very interesting. Very interesting. I mean, speaking of sustainability, I think there is a question that everyone wants to know here. What is your favorite fruit, Nuno? And don't tell me it's anything not sustainable.
Fruits. I'm not sure everybody is really wanting to know that, but
you never know.
I would have to go with a guilty pleasure that I have actually mitigated lately. So it would be mango.
Mango.
And mango is, of course, not the most sustainable fruit to bring to Europe.
I was so sure about
it. but there is actually quite some mango production in Spain now. And it's really, really good mango. I mean, it's of course not as if you pick up a mango from the tree in Brazil or Ecuador, but it's pretty decent mango with a much smaller environmental footprint.
I will take it from you. Definitely better than I do. But yeah, mango in Portugal. I mean, sustainability. Let's put it this way. Excellent. Nuno, do you have anything else you would like to add?
Well, maybe just that we're on a fundraising stage now almost. We expect to be launching our equity crowdfunding campaign within the next 2 months probably.
Cool.
We're going to do it on Crowdcube. So of course, if I may leave this message, I would of course like to invite everyone who is listening to consider becoming a shareholder of GoParity and keep democratizing economy with us.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Nuno. Wishing you all the best with the future developments and the fundraising round. And thank you, everyone, for listening to us. And whenever you have a question to Nuno, please feel free to ask it directly to us, to Nuno directly. And thank you, everyone. Goodbye.
Thanks a lot, Kasim. Bye-bye.
I hope you enjoyed this episode. Thanks again for staying with us until the end. Make sure you subscribe to our podcast and follow us on social media so you never miss an episode. Please don't hesitate to send us your questions and comments at agridius.ch. Thank you.